He said he loved me, but when I didn't put his name on the house, he called me selfish. When I didn't hand him the keys to everything I worked for, he called me cruel. But the truth? That house became my freedom, and his humiliation. If you've ever built something with your whole heart, only to watch someone try to take it from you, this story is for you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, because on the Betrayal Diaries, justice isn't handed out. It's earned. When I first saw the house, I knew it wasn't just a building, it was a home. It was a promise. A small, two-story craftsman with white shutters and a maple tree out front, nestled in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Springfield. The kind of place where kids ride their bikes until dusk and you can still hear the ice cream truck from 3 blocks away. After years of scrimping and saving, years of juggling work, therapy sessions, and the endless responsibility of raising my son, that house was supposed to be our new beginning. I'd spent most of my adult life believing in other people's dreams, helping them, supporting them, putting myself last. This was the first thing that was truly mine. And I thought he'd be happy for me. Tom, my partner of almost 4 years. We weren't married, but for a long time, it had felt like we were heading there. He moved in after a year, and at first, it was easy. We laughed, we cooked dinner together, and he helped with the yard. He was good with my teenage son, Jamie, at least initially. But somewhere along the way, something changed. It started small. A little resentment here, a sarcastic comment there. The way he looked at me when I came home late from work, as if my success was an insult. And then came the house. When the offer was accepted and the loan approved, I was ecstatic. I'd done it alone. My credit, my savings, my planning. It felt like victory, validation, and stability all rolled into one. But when Tom saw the paperwork, his face darkened. "You didn't put me on the deed," he said, his voice flat. I remember setting down my coffee slowly, unsure whether I'd heard him right. "Tom," I said, carefully, "you didn't contribute to the down payment. The bank said it's cleaner this way." "It's not personal." "It feels personal," he snapped. And that was the first time I saw it, the flicker of anger behind his eyes. I tried to explain. I told him how the lender had counted Jamie's disability benefits as part of my qualifying income. It was my credit that made it possible. How the mortgage officer had gently warned me not to mix names unless it was necessary. Tom didn't care. All he heard was that his name wasn't on the line. That I had built something without him. From that day forward, the house wasn't a home to him. It was a threat. The first few months were quiet. Too quiet. He'd go to work, come home, eat dinner, and watch TV in silence. I'd try to draw him out, ask him how his day was, and what he wanted for the weekend. He'd answer with one-word replies. And then came the drinking. At first, it was just Friday nights at the local bar with coworkers. Then Fridays and Saturdays. Then weekdays to unwind. Soon, he was coming home later and later, the sour smell of beer and whiskey clinging to him like sweat. He'd stumble through the door after midnight, slam cabinets, crank the stereo, and stomp through the hallway like he owned the place. The first time he woke me up at 2 in the morning, I thought something was wrong. I ran out of bed, heart pounding, only to find him standing in the kitchen, blasting music and laughing to himself. "Tom, please," I said softly. "Jamie's asleep. I need to be up at 6 for work." He turned, his grin lopsided. "Oh, sorry, boss," he said, his words slurring. "Didn't realize I had to punch in at your house, too." That word stung. Like the walls around us, the floor beneath our feet, had betrayed him somehow. That night was the first time he called it my house with resentment instead of pride. Weeks passed, and the late-night tirades became routine. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the minutes until I heard his car pull into the driveway. Each time, my body tensed. My pulse would quicken, and my hands would grip the blanket tight. I started living in a constant state of anticipation, waiting for the sound of slamming doors, the smell of spilled liquor, the sharp tone of his voice accusing me of things I hadn't done. "You think you're better than me now? Bet you love having everyone know it's your name on the papers. Don't worry, I won't get in your way when you kick me out." I'd try to calm him down. Offer him water, quietly beg him to stop before Jamie wakes up. But every time I asked for peace, he gave me chaos. Every time I asked for sleep, he gave me noise. My doctor had recently diagnosed me with hypothyroidism. It left me exhausted all the time, my energy drained by noon. Sleep wasn't a luxury, it was survival. But Tom didn't care. Some nights, I'd get 2, maybe 3 hours before he stumbled in. He'd crank up the stereo, stomp around the bedroom, sometimes yell into the void, just to wake me up. It wasn't an accident. It was punishment. And he enjoyed it. He'd laugh when I groaned, roll over, and try to bury my face in the pillow. "Come on, don't be such a drag," he'd say. "You're always tired anyway." It got to the point where I'd start dreading sunset. The quiet hours before midnight were the only time the house still felt like mine. After that, it was his arena. Jamie noticed. Of course he did. Teenagers always do, even when we try to shield them. He'd sit at the breakfast table, watching me nurse a cup of coffee, my eyes half open, my hands shaking. "You okay, Mom?" he'd ask. "Yeah," I'd lie. "Just didn't sleep well." He didn't believe me, but he didn't push. Until one morning, after Tom had come home shouting about how men deserve respect and women just take, Jamie looked up from his cereal and said, "Why do you let him talk to you like that?" The question gutted me. Because I didn't have a good answer. How do you explain to your child that you're not weak, just tired? That some days, the fight to keep things normal feels harder than the fight to end them? I promised myself then that I'd leave. But promises are easy when you're exhausted and afraid. Actually doing it? That takes something else. Something I didn't think I had left. Then came the night everything broke. It was a Thursday. I'd worked late and gotten home around 8. Tom was already gone, his car missing from the driveway, the house blissfully quiet. For a few hours, I let myself breathe. I made tea. I folded laundry. I even played a movie quietly in the background, letting the sound of laughter fill the space he usually poisoned. But when the clock struck midnight, I heard the tires crunching in the driveway. My stomach sank. Moments later, the door slammed open. He stumbled in, reeking of whiskey, humming tunelessly as he kicked off his shoes. I didn't move. I just listened. My heart pounded in my ears. Then came the music, blasting so loud the windows rattled. He started shouting, half to himself, half at me. "You think you're some kind of saint, huh? Little Miss Homeowner. Little Miss Big Shot." I sat up, trembling. "Tom, please. Not tonight. I need to sleep." He grinned, unsteady on his feet. "Oh, you'll sleep when I say so." Something inside me cracked. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, a kind of breaking you only feel inside your chest, deep and cold. I realized right then that I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep letting him turn my peace into punishment. The next morning, after he finally passed out on the couch, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and stared out the window. The sun was coming up, the sky blushing pink over the maple tree. It was beautiful, and I hated that he was ruining it. I pulled out a notepad and wrote 3 words. "Get him out." And then I smiled. Because for the first time in months, I finally had a plan. The morning I decided to get Tom out, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger anymore. Not even fear. Just clarity. He'd been the storm for so long that I'd forgotten what stillness felt like. But sitting there at the kitchen table, watching the sunrise creep over the fence, I made a silent promise. I would reclaim my peace, inch by inch, day by day. The problem was, I had no idea how. Tom wasn't violent, not physically. But he was unpredictable. Volatile. And the truth was, part of me was scared of how he might react if I told him to leave. I'd seen it before, the switch from charm to rage, the smirk that said you'll regret this. So, I didn't tell him. I started quietly preparing instead. I hid the important documents first, the deed, my bank statements, Jamie's disability paperwork, and the mortgage approval letters. I slipped them into a file folder and tucked it behind a stack of winter clothes in the closet. Then I made copies of my pay stubs, my insurance information, and my therapist's notes, proof, in case things went south. Every night after Tom stumbled into bed, I'd sit up for another hour, scrolling through my phone, searching for how to remove someone from your home legally. It wasn't as simple as I hoped. Because his mail came there and he'd lived with us long enough, He had something called tenancy rights. I couldn't just change the locks. Not without notice. But I wasn't planning to call the police or go to court. No. My revenge was going to be quieter and far more satisfying. For a few days, I played the part of the compliant partner. Dinner is on the table. A soft smile when he came home on the rare occasions he came home sober. He didn't notice the change. Or maybe he did and didn't care. He was too busy drowning himself in whiskey and bitterness. His drinking had escalated again, and so had the late-night chaos. I started recording the noise on my phone, short clips of him blasting music, shouting at nothing, slamming doors. I didn't know if I'd ever need them, but having proof made me feel less crazy. Each clip was a reminder, this isn't normal. The worst nights were the ones when he came home angry instead of drunk. I could always tell before he even opened the door. The car door would slam harder, his footsteps heavier, his voice sharp before I could even see his face. One night, he burst in, flung his keys onto the counter, and snapped, "You didn't even save me dinner?" I blinked at him, exhausted. "Tom, you said you were working late." "I didn't know." "Yeah, well, maybe if you actually cared about me instead of your stupid job." "Tom." I stood slowly. "It's not my job that's the problem." He froze. For a split second, the room went utterly still. Then he laughed, a low, humorless sound that made my skin crawl. "Right," he said. "It's me." "It's always me, isn't it?" He grabbed a beer from the fridge and stormed off. The door to our bedroom slammed so hard that a picture fell from the wall. The frame cracked clean in half. It was a photo of the three of us, me, Jamie, and Tom, at the county fair the year we first started dating. I remember that day. I remember thinking he looked at me like I was his whole world. I picked up the photo and stared at the split glass. His face was bisected perfectly down the middle. Somehow, it felt symbolic. Jamie started spending more time at his friend's house. I didn't blame him. I'd find little notes sometimes, scraps of paper he'd leave on my nightstand. "Mom, call me if you need me. Don't let him get to you." I kept every one of them in my journal, tucked between pages where I scribbled everything I couldn't say out loud. That journal became my lifeline. My therapy after midnight. When Tom's snores echoed through the house, I'd write until my hands ached. Pages filled with rage, fear, exhaustion, and plans. At first, the plans were just a fantasy. Little daydreams of packing his bags, changing the locks, telling him it was over. But the more I wrote, the clearer those daydreams became. And eventually, they stopped being fantasy. They became blueprints. It was my therapist, Dr. Simmons, who gave me the final push, without even knowing it. She'd been working with me for months, helping me manage my hypothyroidism fatigue, my anxiety, my sense of worth that had been eroded one sarcastic comment at a time. One morning, as I sat across from her clutching my lukewarm coffee, she said something simple that cracked me open. "Rachel," she said softly, "you can't heal in the same environment that's breaking you." I didn't cry. I just nodded. Because I already knew she was right. That afternoon, I went home and started cleaning out the closet. Not mine, his. I worked in silence. Methodical. Precise. Every folded shirt, every wrinkled pair of jeans tossed into garbage bags. I didn't bother separating anything. He could sort it all later, somewhere that wasn't here. When Jamie came home and saw me surrounded by piles of Tom's clothes, his eyes widened. "Mom," he said slowly, Are you serious this time?" I looked up at him. "Yes." A slow smile spread across his face. And for the first time in months, he laughed. Not the nervous, brittle laugh we'd both grown used to. A real one. I couldn't help it, I laughed too. That's when I spotted it. The giant, fluffy white teddy bear is sitting on Jamie's bed. The one his aunt had given him years ago, now missing an eye and permanently slouched. And in that moment, an idea, a wild, petty, glorious idea, bloomed in my mind. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands, and said, "Help me with something." Jamie's eyebrows shot up. "What are we doing?" "Packing," I said. With style. We stuffed the bear into one of Tom's old work shirts. The fabric stretched tight around the round belly. We filled the sleeves and legs with his clothes, socks, t-shirts, Even the flannel he always claimed was his lucky one. By the time we were done, it looked ridiculous, like some cartoon version of Tom, slouched and lifeless. Jamie wheezed from laughter. "Oh my God, Mom, that's perfect." We drew a mustache on the bear's face with a black marker and popped his work cap on top. It was uncanny. He even had that same blank stare he gave me whenever I asked him for help around the house. I stood back and looked at it. "He always said he worked for beer," I murmured. "Guess he finally found a job." Jamie blinked. "You're not serious." "Oh, I'm very serious." We dragged the stuffed Tom outside, set him on the curb, surrounded him with empty 12-packs, and propped up a sign made from a piece of cardboard. In big black letters, it read, "We'll work for beer." Jamie nearly doubled over laughing. "He's going to die when he sees this." "That's the idea," I said. We stood there for a moment, the evening sun dipping low, the cicadas buzzing in the trees. For the first time in forever, the air felt light. I wasn't scared. I wasn't tired. I was done. Truly, completely done. When Tom got home that night, the neighborhood was already buzzing. I'd heard whispers earlier, the kind of laughter that floats between houses when people are trying not to be obvious. Apparently, a few of his drinking buddies had driven by and seen the display. Word travels fast when the local bar is half your social circle. I was sitting on the porch with my tea when his car screeched into the driveway. He slammed the door, stumbled toward the yard, and froze. I wish I'd taken a picture of his face. He just stood there, staring at the stuffed version of himself surrounded by beer cans and garbage bags. His jaw slackened. His hands curled into fists. "What the?" Then he noticed me. He turned, eyes blazing. "You did this." I met his gaze calmly. "Yes." "You threw my stuff out?" "Yes." "This is my house too." "No, Tom," I said softly. "It's not." He blinked as if the words didn't make sense. "You can't just." "I can," I interrupted. And I did. "You can take your things and go. Or the city's trash service will take them for you in the morning." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then, slowly, his anger cracked into something else, humiliation. He realized what I'd done. What everyone had seen. From the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. Neighbors watching from their windows, a couple of them smirking. And worse, 2 men from the bar across the street, standing on the sidewalk, chuckling under their breath. Tom's face flushed deep red. "You think this is funny?" he barked. One of them shrugged. "Man, you brought this on yourself. We told you she wasn't gonna take it forever." The other added, "Guess she finally called your bluff." Tom swore under his breath, kicked at the grass, and grabbed a handful of garbage bags. He stuffed them angrily into his trunk, muttering something I couldn't hear. "The teddy bear?" He left that behind. He didn't even look back at it. When he drove away, tires squealing, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The porch light flickered above me, casting a soft glow over the yard. The bear slouched against the curb, surrounded by cans, the sign still propped in front of it. "We'll work for beer." I couldn't help it. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. After Tom drove off, the silence felt strange. Not peaceful, not yet. Just empty. I sat on the porch for a long time, the sound of crickets filling the space where his shouting used to live. My tea had gone cold. The night air clung to my skin, warm and heavy, but inside, something finally felt light. Jamie came out a little while later, still in his hoodie, his hair messy from lying on his bed. He leaned against the door frame and looked at me, then at the stuffed Tom slouched on the curb. "He's really gone?" he asked quietly. I nodded. He let out a breath I didn't know he'd been holding. "Good." I smiled faintly. "Yeah, good." We stood there together, watching the yard like we were guarding it. In a way, maybe we were. Guarding our peace. Guarding the quiet we hadn't had in years. It was the first night in so long that the house didn't vibrate with tension. No slamming doors. No heavy footsteps. No blaring music at 2 in the morning. Just stillness. And for the first time in forever, I slept. Not fitfully, not half alert, I slept. Deep, uninterrupted, healing sleep. When I woke the next morning, the sun poured through the window like a blessing. The air smelled like coffee and open windows. Jamie was already up, eating cereal at the kitchen table, earbuds in. He looked up and smiled. "You look better," he said. I laughed. "That's what 8 hours of sleep does for you." He grinned. "You're gonna love this." He motioned toward the window. I followed his gaze and burst out laughing. The garbage truck was rumbling down the street, and there, sitting proudly at the curb, was the teddy bear Tom, still dressed in his work uniform, surrounded by empty beer boxes. As the mechanical arm of the truck lifted the pile into the bin, one of the garbage men whistled and said something to his partner. They both started laughing. "Goodbye, Tom," I whispered under my breath. And just like that, he was gone. The days that followed were surreal. For the first time in years, the house was mine. Truly, completely mine. I hadn't realized how much I'd been walking on eggshells until I didn't have to anymore. Every little thing felt like a revelation: being able to play music in the kitchen, falling asleep with the lights off and the windows open, drinking tea on the porch without fear of headlights pulling into the driveway. Freedom, I realized, wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was the absence of chaos. Still, even as I settled into the calm, part of me braced for the inevitable. The text. The knock at the door. The apology. And, sure enough, 3 days later, it came. It was around noon when my phone buzzed. His name flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a long time before answering. "Rachel," his voice slurred slightly, that familiar combination of arrogance and self-pity. "You really had to humiliate me like that?" I took a slow breath. "Tom, you humiliated yourself." He scoffed. "Everyone at the bar's been talking about it. You made me a joke." I closed my eyes, picturing him sitting there, head heavy in his hands, the same stool he'd chosen over coming home. "You made me a ghost," I said softly. "You stopped being a partner a long time ago, Tom. I just finally stopped pretending you were." He was silent for a moment. Then, bitterly, "So that's it? You take my house, my stuff, and just move on." "It's not your house," I said firmly. "It never was. And yes, Tom, that's exactly what I'm going to do." There was a pause, the kind that feels like it stretches for miles. Then came a soft, broken laugh. "You know, you always did think you were better than me." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He hung up before I could. And when the line went dead, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time: peace. I went back to therapy that week, and when I told Dr. Simmons what had happened, she tried to keep her composure. She really did. But halfway through the story, right around the part where I described the teddy bear in his uniform, the beer cans, the sign that said "We'll work for beer," she completely lost it. She laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes. When she finally caught her breath, she said, "Rachel, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've heard at least 50 ways to leave your lover, but this is my new favorite." That made me laugh too. But underneath the humor, I felt something deeper: validation. Because for once, someone saw me not as a victim, but as someone who took back control. As the weeks passed, life slowly found its rhythm again. Jamie started smiling more. He invited friends over without asking if Tom was home. I began cooking dinners that didn't feel like peace offerings, just meals shared between mother and son. We painted the spare room together one weekend, laughing when we both ended up with paint on our faces. The house started to look different. Brighter. It smelled like fresh air and lemon cleaner, not stale beer. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was calm. And when I looked around, I realized something important. We weren't rebuilding what we'd lost. We were building something entirely new. Still, there were moments of doubt. Nights when I'd sit by the window, watching the streetlights, wondering if I'd been too harsh. If I could have done something differently. But then I'd remember the sound of him stumbling through the door at 2 a.m. The way my chest used to tighten with dread every time I heard his car. The exhaustion that never left me. And I'd know I made the right choice. Some people think revenge is about destruction. About hurting the person who hurt you. But for me, it wasn't about that at all. It was about restoration. Reclaiming the life, the peace, the sanity he'd stolen piece by piece. One evening, about a month later, I was watering the flowers in the front yard when Mrs. Green from across the street called out to me. Rachel. Honey, I just have to say, we were all so proud of you. I laughed. For what? She leaned over her fence, smiling conspiratorially. For finally getting rid of that fool. I saw that display you made. My husband said it was the talk of the neighborhood for a week. I covered my face, half embarrassed, half delighted. Oh no. Oh yes, she said. You're a legend, dear. Sometimes, justice needs a little creativity. Her words warmed me more than I expected. It felt good to be seen, not pitted, not judged, but respected. That night, as I locked up the house and checked on Jamie, I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, my room, and looked around. No beer cans. No slamming doors. No ghost of resentment hiding in the corners. Just peace. And I thought to myself, maybe this is what revenge really is. Not the destruction of another person, but the quiet rebuilding of yourself. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. I brewed coffee, opened the windows, and listened to the birds outside. For the first time in years, the sound wasn't drowned out by chaos. It was soft, steady, beautiful, and it belonged entirely to me. A few weeks passed before I saw him again. It was a Saturday afternoon, bright, cloudless, the kind of day where even the air feels light. Jamie and I were loading groceries into the car when I heard someone call my name. Rachel. I turned, and there he was. Tom. His hair was longer, messier. The swagger he used to carry like armor was gone. He looked smaller somehow, not in size, but in presence. Like someone had turned down the brightness on him. He stood at the edge of the parking lot, hands shoved in his pockets, his expression caught between defiance and shame. I felt Jamie stiffen beside me. He whispered, "Do you want me to?" I shook my head. "It's fine." He nodded and got into the car, closing the door. Tom walked over slowly, stopping a few feet away. "You look good," he said finally. I smiled, polite but distant. "Thanks." He shifted his weight. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." The words hung there between us, fragile and uncertain. I took a breath. For what? He blinked, confused. For everything. For being an idiot. For the drinking. For what happened. I waited. There was a part of me that wanted to believe him, to think maybe he'd learned something. But as he kept talking, I realized he wasn't apologizing because he understood. He was apologizing because he was embarrassed. "People won't let it go," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "That stupid teddy bear thing. I can't even walk into the bar without someone making a joke." I tilted my head. "Maybe you should stop going to the bar." He frowned. "You think you're funny?" I met his eyes, calm and steady. "No, Tom. I think I'm done." Something in my tone must have landed, because for once, he didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, muttered, "Take care," and walked away. And as he disappeared into the parking lot, I felt no anger, no triumph, just relief. The story was over. That night, after Jamie went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea. The house was dark except for the soft glow of the porch light. I thought about everything that had happened, the months of exhaustion, the nights of noise and dread, the moment I finally took it all back. It was strange, really. I'd imagined revenge as something fiery, explosive, the kind of satisfaction that came with shouting or slamming a door. But this was quiet, gentle, like setting down a heavy bag I'd been carrying for too long. The next morning, I got a message from a woman I didn't know. She said she'd seen the post on Facebook. One of the neighbors had shared photos of the teddy bear incident, and somehow it had spread. She wrote, "I know this might sound strange, but thank you. Your story gave me the courage to kick out my boyfriend. He sounds just like yours." I thought I was alone. Then another message came. And another. Women from all over town, some I vaguely recognized, some total strangers, reaching out to say the same thing. That they'd been where I was. That they'd stayed too long, too scared, or too tired to leave. That watching someone else finally stand up made them believe they could too. It was overwhelming. But in the best way. Because for the first time, my pain had purpose. One woman, Karen from 2 streets over, invited me for coffee. She was older, with kind eyes and laugh lines that told me she'd seen her share of storms. We sat on her porch, sipping coffee and sharing stories. She told me about her ex-husband, how he'd drained her savings, belittled her dreams, made her feel small. And when I told her about the night with the teddy bear, she laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. "Girl," she said, wiping her eyes, "I wish I'd thought of that. Sometimes the best revenge isn't screaming, it's letting the world laugh at the person who thought they had power over you." Her words stuck with me, because that's exactly what it was. Tom's greatest weapon had always been control, the way he could twist my peace, my sleep, my self-worth. And when I took that from him, when I turned his cruelty into a joke for the whole neighborhood to see, he couldn't stand it. He didn't lose his house. He lost his power. Months passed. Seasons changed. The maple tree out front turned red and gold, leaves crunching underfoot. The house felt warmer somehow, not just from the sunlight, but from the energy inside it. Jamie thrived. He joined the debate team, started volunteering at the local animal shelter. His laughter came easily again. And me? I learned to love the quiet. The slow mornings. The smell of coffee and fresh laundry. The sound of rain tapping against the windows without the undercurrent of dread. Sometimes, I'd sit on the porch swing in the evenings, watching the streetlights flicker on, and think about how far we'd come. The house that once felt like a battleground had become our sanctuary. One night, months later, I got a call from Dr. Simmons. She said, "I hope you don't mind, but I told your story, anonymously, of course, at a conference for trauma recovery." I smiled. "Really?" "Really," she said. "You wouldn't believe how many people asked for details. They wanted to know how you found the courage to do what you did." I laughed softly. It wasn't courage, exactly. It was exhaustion that finally turned into strength. "That's usually how courage starts," she replied. We talked for a while about healing, about moving forward. And before we hung up, she said something that I still think about. "Rachel," she said gently, "sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't payback. It's peace." She was right. It's been over a year now. Every once in a while, I hear little updates about Tom, that he quit drinking for a bit, that he tried a new job, that he moved to a different town. I don't feel anything about it anymore. Not bitterness, not joy. Just distance. Like reading the final chapter of a book you've already outgrown. My focus now is the life I built after him. The house that almost broke me ended up saving me. Because it reminded me of what I'm capable of, that I can stand on my own, that I can protect my peace, and that sometimes laughter really is the best kind of revenge. The last time I looked at that spot on the curb where the teddy bear once sat, I smiled. The grass had grown back, bright and healthy. The neighbors still joked about it sometimes, "We'll work for beer." But it wasn't mockery anymore. It was legend. And I was proud of that. Because long after the laughter faded and the story stopped making its rounds, the message stayed the same. Don't let anyone convince you that love means losing yourself. Don't let anyone make you small in the space you built with your own hands. And if they do, let the world see them for who they are, with a teddy bear in their place, a cardboard sign, and all the emptiness they created for themselves. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't about what you destroy. It's about what you rebuild. And I rebuilt everything. The house that broke us became the house that healed me. Every nail, every wall, every quiet morning reminded me that I didn't just survive, I reclaimed my life. If you've ever had someone try to take credit for your strength or make you feel guilty for your independence, remember this: you don't owe them your peace. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is laugh, close the door, and never look back. What's the most creative revenge you've ever seen? Share it in the comments. I love reading your stories. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Betrayal Diaries, where every betrayal finds its ending and justice always comes home.